Today, we're diving into a really high-stakes dilemma. Imagine you're at a crossroads and you've got to pick a partner, but both of them have a complicated history. That's pretty much the spot India's in right now, caught between two global superpowers. So here's the big question. Who should India trust more, the United States or China? And, this isn't just some political puzzle. The answer could literally shape the future of South Asia and maybe even the entire global balance of power. And this is where things get really tricky. On one hand, you see things with China starting to look a little better. Flights are back on, trade is picking up, their leaders are actually talking. But just as things seem to be thawing, the US comes in with this huge, stark warning about a potential war on the horizon. Okay, so let's unpack that first piece of the puzzle, the American warning. What is it all about? Well, the Pentagon, that's the headquarters of the US military, just put out a report that paints a very, very different and honestly a much darker picture of what China's long-term game plan is for India. The report doesn't pull any punches. It says the current calm on the border, it's totally deceptive. It claims China is actively planning more military bases to basically box India in. And it even says a huge, large-scale conflict is a real possibility, with the ultimate goal being to subdue India. Those are incredibly strong words to be coming from the Pentagon. And then the report gets even more specific. It zeroes in on the region of Arunachal Pradesh, claiming China is, and I quote, obsessed with it. So this isn't some vague threat. It's pointing to a very specific and very sensitive potential flashpoint. And check out this timeline. What the Pentagon is arguing here is that this isn't just random aggression. No, they see it as part of a very careful, very long-term plan they call national rejuvenation. And there's a deadline, 2049. The goal? To take back all disputed territories, which, in the Pentagon's view, absolutely includes Arunachal Pradesh. But, and this is a huge but in our story, after hearing a warning that scary, you have to look at who's delivering the message. And that brings us to the other side of this coin, America's own contradictions. We've got to ask the tough question, do America's actions actually line up with the warnings it's giving? So, here's contradiction number one. The Pentagon report says China is trying to drive a wedge between India and the US. Okay, fair enough. But a lot of people would point out that the whole America First policy from the last administration, with all its tariff wars, already did a ton of damage to that trust. So that accusation can feel a little hollow, And this slide right here, wow. This might be the most glaring contradiction of all. The US is pointing the finger at China for selling fighter jets to Pakistan. But at the exact same time, the US is giving Pakistan a massive $700 million deal to upgrade its own F-16 fleet. So both superpowers are arming India's biggest rival while telling India, hey, don't trust that other guy. Okay, so all of these contradictions force us to dig a little deeper, to look past the finger pointing and ask a bigger question. And that's our third section. What is the real endgame here? What do these two superpowers actually want? And the answer might just boil down to a really simple but really powerful idea, G2 versus G3. So what on earth does G2 versus G3 mean? Well, think of it this way. A G2 world is one dominated by two big bosses, the US and China. A G3 world? That's when India joins the club at the top. And the core idea here is that neither of the current bosses really wants to make room and share their global influence with a new player. And this leads to a pretty stunning conclusion. For all their rivalry, the US and China might secretly agree on one thing. They both benefit from keeping India as a strong regional player, but not a true global superpower. It lets them keep that G2 power structure just the way it is, without a new person demanding a seat at the head of the table. So, if you're India and you can't really trust the warnings from one superpower or the intentions of the other, what do? What's the path forward? And that brings us to our final section. The answer, according to a lot of strategists, is to focus on self-reliance. At the end of the day, this is the bottom line. In a world full of complicated alliances and loyalties that can shift on a dime, the only security you can truly 100% count on is your own strength. If India is powerful, economically, militarily, no one is going to dare to mess with them. And true security isn't just about having a big army. It's like a three-legged stool. You need strong, sustained economic growth, because that pays for everything else. You need robust defense spending to project that strength. And maybe most importantly, you need that unshakable internal unity. All three have to be strong. And so that leaves us with this one last really fascinating question. In a world of giants, giants who might not actually want you to grow too tall, how does a rising power like India navigate all the warnings, the temptations, and the contradictions to forge its own destiny? That right there might be one of the great geopolitical stories of our time.